All right.
Do we want the next one?
Yes, I do.
Do you want to read it?
No, you read it.
Me read it?
Yeah, you're a good, better presenter than I am.
Trump has banned transgenders from serving in the military and from competing in female sports. How do you explain what transgender is to young kids? Ooh, this is so interesting because I was just yesterday watching videos on this very subject.
So bring it. What's your feeling?
Okay, so, first of all, I would love to sort of see what Trump actually has done with transgenders.
Okay.
Only because I just recently watched a video. In this video, a trans woman was talking about this. This was someone who served in the military, is a veteran, is trans, and actually said it's not like you can't serve and be trans, but you won't have access to maybe some care because you're overseas or you're in situations that you can't receive it and everything. So I would have to look and see exactly what's banned and what is not. I feel like I need more information on that. So how do you explain what transgender is to your kids?
Well, let's take the first one first.
Okay.
Okay, the first part of the question, and that is transgender in the military. And my feeling on this is military has always been sort of like a weird accommodation anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So if I want to put SEAL Team 6 together, or I want to have, what are the Marines version of that, the beach guys, what the heck are they called? SEAL Team.
Oh.
SEAL Team. So
yeah. I say that's SEAL Team 6. Yeah.
What the hell? Anyway, SEAL teams. And I want like strong killing machines. And I take a bunch of the biggest bodied people that have the best disciplines and whatever and roll them around the beach and torture the shit out of them and see who breaks. And my job is to make sure that they get out of there. You could say that you did all of that to build a killing machine that didn't have reasons to not be a killing machine. If they said, I don't want to bring anybody in SEAL team that's married, right? You'd think that's, not fair to married people. I could be a good SEAL team, but it wouldn't make you in the capacity of being a killing machine to have people at home worried about you. And when it came down to killing somebody, you would have be like, oh, what about my wife at home, right?
Yeah.
So they were able, because of the capacity of what you were after, be able to only pick certain people that they were absolutely after. But if you look at SEAL team and say, well, there's not enough diversity in SEAL team and there's not enough inclusion in SEAL team, well, it's not SEAL team anymore. You just created something that wasn't that. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you infiltrate it, like, do you agree that women shouldn't be on front lines?
I think it very much depends on the person.
Okay.
I have a hard time with all or nothings. To say no woman should be on the front line, there are some badass women that I think could handle
Single-dimensional,
themselves.
though. Single-dimensional. Okay, if women are different than men, and if it means you're on the front lines, that you've got to stay ducked down in a foxhole for a month, right? Mm-hmm. And you have... your biology does different things that change who you are, and which means there's, for the most point, in that sweet spot, you're going to be a fine participant in that foxhole amongst other people. But then things are going to happen to you, like you're going to have, your period, right? Mm-hmm. And you're going to have chemical and emotional changes. There are going to be other people in the foxhole that are attracted to you, and you will be a distraction.
Which could also happen to men.
Sure. Mm-hmm. But if I'm planning to have someone who I'm picturing, sending them out in the field, diving in a foxhole, and looking out to take out the sniper nest, and they need to stay there and be that, I'm going to pick out a segment of person that's proper for that job and discipline. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to take somebody who adds different values to that, right? Different metrics to that, and then take the risk for the sake of doing it. What are the gains, right? Yeah. No gains, all downside, no upside. Now, if there's a badass woman who takes chemicals so that they don't ovulate, and maybe they've had G.I. Jane and take every attraction value out of it, they know what things were on the downside list, and they behaved appropriately to take themselves off of, look, I'm all upside. I'm strong, I'm fast, I shoot straight, I can do this. And I took all the precautions to take every objection that anybody would ever have off the table. Now it's like, okay, the foxhole front lineman was 100% committed to the job, and they decided to take it upon themselves. So if I'm a pilot, right, and pilots need to have 20/20 vision, and I don't have 20/20 vision, so that's not what they're looking for to jump in the cockpit of an F-18, right? So I take it upon myself to go get LASIK surgery and remove all of the downside of having imperfect vision, and I sit in there and I can say, now I have 20/20 vision. Now it makes sense because I had to orient myself towards the job, not the other way around. The job shouldn't accommodate me and let me wear, you remember Fisheye from Hot Shots?
Yeah.
Yeah, the dude that had the big old goggles on.
Yeah.
Right. It's like that. So
Yeah.
And I'm using the military because we kind of give them a pass not to be inclusive. We want them to put together the stuff that helps them engage in the purpose of what they're doing. We don't necessarily want to add things that don't support that purpose.
Right. And I think the whole idea of transgenders in the military and any band and anything having to do with this group is automatically heated because people see it as an issue that is only about soldiers being uncomfortable. Oh, you just don't like transgender people or they make you uncomfortable and now you're going to ban them. When no, you can be booted from the military for having flat feet. You could be booted from the military if your neck circumference is too big. All these different things, vision, all kinds of stuff. They're like, no. There is a certain set of skills and abilities that are important to keep you alive, to do your job. And if anything hinders that, you can be booted. And it's not whether or not someone's uncomfortable about the way someone chooses to live their life. But in this video I watched, where it was an interview with several transgender people, several of them said, when you were on these different hormone replacements or whatever it is, depending on how you're not converting, but transitioning. Yes, thank you. It can make you weaker. They said you absolutely can physically become weaker because of these meds in your system.
Right.
That's a real concern. And it's not a concern of, oh, I might think it's weird that you do that. It's if you are too weak to do this job, you're going to get killed. And why would we want that? And so I think there's so much more around it than just this idea of someone's being mean by banning people. If we had a headline that says we're banning all asthmatics from the military, would that be a hot button issue or not? Or would people say, that kind of makes sense?
And that's the why, that if we're building a team that has an express purpose and I can take whatever liberties I want to build the team that's going to get the job done, then I'm doing my job. If it's something where, we live in a very activist time where so what you want to be might not align with what should be, okay? And so if reasonable people sat around that, let's accomplish the actual goal. Do we want smart people to be not judged by something that's either immutable or something that doesn't affect you whatsoever? I'm a libertarian, so none of your business, dude, right?
Yeah.
But when it's flying a plane and I'm a passenger, the only thing I care about is being able to fly the plane. Who you are or what you do I don't care. Can you take off, fly it, land safely, and get me to my gate, right? That's all I care about. And then so I think if we'd have more pragmatists on how we judge these things and don't make it so that the pendulum is swinging in one direction where we want to force these people into places that are going to make all people more unsafe. And then the other side, we're like, I don't want to discriminate against anybody. If you can do the job and it doesn't affect the merits of the outcome, I don't really care who you are or what you can do. Land the plane. I don't care who you are. That's all I care about.
Yeah, I think so too. I think any ban of someone from the military, there is more behind it than just pure hatred and bias and I don't like that you live that way, so I'm getting rid of you. That's not what this issue is to me. I don't believe people who hate Trump can push that idea all they want, and they're welcome to have that opinion. I don't think that's what this is. I truly believe that the ban, again, I would love to see what actually is banned, because I don't think, I think there are ways people who have been identified as transgendered can still serve. I'm not 100% on that, but I think there are good reasons. I think there are medical reasons. I think there are safety reasons. So yeah.
Well, and you got to understand, like, he's coming in assuming things that already have been done. Okay, so where this might not be a ban per se, it might be, okay, so if we ran an engineering firm, right? And all of our engineers, we're coming in, we're inheriting somebody else's thing. And what's important to me is lethality of the SEAL team, or being able to build buildings with the smartest people are there. And then you're like, well, I got a whole room full of people that I didn't pick out, right? And they do not align with where we're headed next. What would I do? Well, first I would stop letting any more people in until the way to qualify and filter people through has been fixed, which I think that's probably what we're doing here, until we can get a good handle on the sciences of what transgender people can do from a merit standpoint in the military. So I have a list of things that it does not detract on what the purpose of the military group is, right? Until we have that, let's not take any of those and inherit any of those mistakes from the previous administration. And if there were people, like there's an engineer who was the old owner's brother who played video games for a living, and he, through nepotism, gave him a job. Well, I want to get rid of that one, right? Because they wouldn't have been here. They wouldn't have qualified through my new filter anyway. So that one's got to go. It did not that you were transgender, or you were an ethnicity or a religion. You're gone because you wouldn't pass, and I could tell you couldn't pass right now because you're playing Fortnite when you should be building a building, that kind of thing. So I think the people that are being removed right now are just ones they know can go.
Yeah.
And then the freeze on bringing any more in, maybe the filters aren't built yet to be able to bring new batches through. That's my guess.
Probably. So how do you feel about sports and like trans women being involved with women's sports?
I've stayed away from this one because I got nothing to add. But as far as what I've seen is that men going into women's sports, no matter if they're transitioning or not, are beating the shit out of all of the women, and it's a strict unfairness to me. So whatever they're doing now is not a fair version of it. You need to go back to the drawing board, and if you have legitimate feminine males that don't pose a danger or won't outcompete those other people, it's sort of like one of those issues where we took something that was we had a pretty good handle on, like women's sports were what they were, and we threw some kind of curveball at it, and it did not add to it. It did not make it better. And so, like, if you're going to do it, go back to the drawing board on it.
Yeah, and I mean, even here, as much as part of me would say, I would be happy to support someone in their journey. If someone says, I am transitioning, I want to use different pronouns, I want to dress a certain way, I want to whatever, I'm not here to judge you in your lifestyle. Do you? But when you have things that are specific, this sport is a woman's sport. This is a man's sport, period. If you are not a biological woman or man, you are not part of that category. And I'll probably get hate for this, but again, if you are a man, you were born a man, and you transition to a woman, good. I will use whatever pronoun you want. I will support you, but you are not a biological woman. You're not. You're not, and nothing you say can make you that. So if you have something that is like women, period, men, period, not trans women, not trans men, biological women, biological man, you either are or you aren't. And until they want to maybe make some alterations to that, if they want to say, hey, you know, we've done some studies, and maybe in this case, a trans woman actually does sort of physically measure up to a biological woman. If that ever becomes the case, then let's consider that. But if they say this is for a biological woman and this is for a biological man, and that is our rules, period, then if you are not a biological woman and a biological man, I'm sorry, you're not in that group.
Yeah, there needs to be a lot more intelligence added to this debate. One of my favorite YSU students, Natalie Lasky, I've interviewed her a bunch of times. Transgender, one of the most reasonable people that I've had a chance to interview, and her position, is that you can make decisions and look at the fallout from those decisions, who it affects. Like when I do something, if it's for me, like if you go into your living room and you put on makeup and it affects no other people, then nobody gives two shits about what you do. But the minute that you start affecting other people, where you hurt a woman athlete because you were just stronger than they were, well, you've extended beyond what is acceptable to the rest of us, as long as you're just... So I'll give you... We'll do a little role playing here. So let's just say... historically, when you put women and men together, you get a place that a certain amount of them don't want to be. So we take it. We'll use a gym. All right. So you have the YMCA, and everybody can go to the YMCA, right? And they started inviting women to it, and men don't give two shits about it. But some women are like, I don't really like to be in the gym with men. So they create the YWCA
or curves,
right?
Yeah.
And it's all women. No men are allowed to come in. And I'm like, you know what? I want to go to the YWCA. I do. And they're going to say on the application, well, no, you can't. You're a guy, and the reason we have this is for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reasons. Right. And I'm like, well, here's give me your reasons. Okay. Well, women, they feel a lot of judgment from guys. If there's a guy in the room, that they're going to feel judged and they're not going to be able to work out. And the intent of being here is to work out. You're a distraction. You're not necessary. You'd be affecting them on the negative. Okay. I'll hear that. And feeling threatened, being able to behave when you're around other women, a whole litany of things. So if I then did not contribute, I promise that I won't engage with anybody. I promise that I won't make anybody feel uncomfortable. I promise that I won't judge or even glance at anybody while they're doing their thing. Now can I come in? Well, now you're at a point where you've been reasonable, but I would still say no to me going there, because there is a YMCA right down the street that is made for that deal. Why do you want to come into something that has been curated for a certain outcome where you don't have to be there? There are 9,000 different options. Go choose one of those ones where we don't have to make special accommodations for you, and you don't have to risk the other ladies who are enjoying themselves doing workouts free of men, right? Why do that? Is it just because you want to be a rebel and show that you can mess with something that's working completely?
Yeah, because, I mean, you think about it, too. It can't just be that one side deserves respect and the other does not.
Exactly. That's Natalie's point.
Yeah.
Is that you're looking at it through not necessarily how you are affecting other people, but other people are affected by you, not on purpose, right?
So during this video I watched, this person made a really good point that I hadn't even really thought of, and it's sort of like this. She was a transgendered woman. She had surgery, hormones, the works. You would never know. If you looked at this person, just looks like a very beautiful young woman. Looks like was a woman from birth. You would never know. And she said, it is up to us as the transitioning person to make sure we are far along in our transition to not make someone else uncomfortable. And they got on the subject of restrooms, for example. And she said, when I started my transition and I still very much just look like a man trying to become a woman, I used the men's restroom. Or maybe I went into a third option, another private restroom. She says it was not until I could clearly pass from a glance as a woman that I went into the women's, because I don't want to make the other women uncomfortable. Now she's transitioned to the point, like I said, looks like a woman, looks like she's always been a woman. She's like, now if I were to go into the men's room, I get kicked out. That's a disruption. Seeing this in a woman's restroom is not a disruption, and that's on us as the person transitioning to make that distinction based on where you are in your transition.
Okay,
and I
so
thought
let's
that
use,
was interesting.
Let's use YWCA again. So let's just say I know what's going to make them uncomfortable, and so I'm going to make it so nobody even notices. I'm going to dress like a woman. I'm going to go there as a woman, and I've not broken any of the rules. Now, I know that I'm not a woman, so I am carrying the risk of one day being exposed for having snuck into a place where that wasn't designed for me, right? And because their lines were shorter and they didn't smell as bad and it costs less, or whatever reason, I decided to go and join the YWCA. And so long that I can get away with it, nobody noticed, and I didn't break any rules, and there was no repercussions for anybody else, I bet you I could be at that gym forever, right? Because the objections have all been met with accommodations that I was willing to make. But let's just say one day my wig falls off, and now everybody knows not only am I not the person that belongs in that gym, but now do they feel like they've almost been infiltrated by an outsider? Is the risk on me that I better be really good at concealing all the uncomforts that I would, give these women who are trying to work out? Or is it them? They should, by that point, like, you accepted me before. Why now? Why do you feel weird? I'm still the same person that I was yesterday. Mm-hmm. And that's the real back and forth, that if you're having a non-advocacy, non-activist, it's totally objective deal, where it is it is a carried risk when you are breaking through what is. If you just follow the rules and do the thing that's easy, then you don't have these kind of problems. When you do the harder thing that has complications, you just got to be cool with the complications.
Yeah.
If she goes into the women's restroom and her dick falls out, right? Mm-hmm. And somebody sees it, right? Should she then say...
Well, she had surgery
I'm just saying, using that example.
Yeah.
If she does something that makes somebody feel uncomfortable, is it her problem that she didn't carry on the masquerade? Or is it their problem that they objected to something that is outside of what should be in a ladies' restroom?
And another way that I think this conversation gets even hairier is...
I see what you did there.
I did. That was an accident. That was not something I meant to... imply anything by,
but it was good anyway.
Thanks. Going down my YouTube rabbit hole of watching these videos, there are groups of people that believe they are that sex once they transition. Mm-hmm. And there are allies, supporters that believe the same thing. There was one girl that said, my good friend has transitioned and she's more woman than I am, and I was born a female. And somebody said, why do you say that? What makes her more woman? Well, they're just a great person and they're loving and they're kind. And he's like, that makes a woman? Like, what's a woman? And they believe inside they are that thing they are trying to convey. And so that becomes another argument too. Is
but
one person will say, "But you're not."
And this is that dividing line, right? What you feel in your own head is yours, and I'm not going to tell you that you do not have to feel that way, right? But making me feel and buying into whatever you feel, that's that circle where now you've affected me. And if I want to think that you're pretty or you're not pretty or you're tall or not tall, right? You don't have control over how I feel about things. You can do things that market me into your feelings and ideas, but forcing me and guilting me and threatening me to feel the same way, well, maybe you feel like a woman and I feel like you're not a woman. And guess what? I get to have mine in my own head, and I can feel that you do not look like a woman. And you know what I can do about it? Nothing. And you can feel that you are a woman, and you know what I could do about it? Nothing.
Yeah, and this is why every time I get in this discussion, I always bring up the difference between gender and sex. And some people think it's ridiculous, and I don't think it is, because the discussion gets so in-depth. I recently saw someone say they don't believe gender exists. They think it's just another name for personality, of which there are infinite.
Fine.
So if someone says, well, there's only two genders. We know there are two sexes, male and female. How many genders? You could say male and female, but if gender does not exist, it's a personality, then sure, there's lots of different personalities. What someone feels in their head is not sex. Sex is your biological makeup. So when somebody says, well, I am a transgendered woman. I feel like a woman. Fine, you feel like a woman. But if you were born a man, you are a man. And that's when somebody says this is a male sport, this is a male bathroom, this is a female area. regardless of your gender, that's why you can't come in. We're not talking about your gender and your feelings and how you want to present yourself. We're talking your biological sex. That is different. And I think that's where people start to butt heads.
Well,
thinking they're the
that's
same
where they
thing.
lose me, not necessarily having an opinion about it, but there's no purpose to it. Almost like we were talking about people who would like to wear sweaters and they don't. I don't effing care. I don't. That is about you and what you want and what makes you happy. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like when there's an actual utility of what we're talking about, I know what to do with it. So if you want to express yourself as anything, if I don't need it for anything, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. You do you. You know, how you want to express yourself. I don't care enough to judge you. I don't care enough to come after you. I don't care enough to hate you. I don't care. And you know what? Here's the thing. I don't have to care about anything. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'll go back to the whole idea of when did one side take precedence over the other as far as who's offending who? You know, if you're like, I love to wear green shirts and I want to wear green shirts every stinking day of my life and green is who I am. And you're like, I hate green shirts. Green shirts give me a headache. Every time I see the color green, I break out in hives and I get a migraine and it's awful. But you can't stifle me. I want to wear green shirts. And you could be like, fine, but I don't have to like green shirts. Who's then now like, should I just not then? If I know you have an aversion to it, should I just come around you and change my shirt? Or should you say, oh my gosh, I have an aversion to this, you know, but you have the right to wear green. You know, like, who takes precedence? Where's the rule that says...
Well, no, from a natural standpoint, neither. Like, we don't have to be in a relationship, and I don't have to accommodate you, and I don't have to like you. But if we have an agreement between two people, usually I will pick relationships based on reciprocal consideration, right? So if I said that I don't like something, and then you were super eager to be not an asshole, or you want to serve me well, and you did that thing, then it would make me want to serve you well, and I might give into something I don't halfway believe or don't care about for the sake of serving you in the same way that you serve me. That is what a relationship actually is. Two strangers owe them each other zero things. Like, there are laws that you got to follow, but if I want to not care whatsoever and just stay out of your business, and I hope you'll reciprocate and stay the F out of my business as well, that's all we have to do is ignore each other.
Yeah. And I think the only way it even gets hairy is because there are laws. People want to question the laws or the motives behind the laws, and then that's where you get into...
Well, here's sort of like to put a bookend in this. One more part of his question, because I do want to get into that as well. But there is an amazing byproduct of these pendulum swings. I think we're on a stupid level, no matter what, and it's kind of cool to watch society toy with these things and pull the pendulum back, knowing it's going to swing back in the equal and opposite era, so it's going to go stupid on one direction and equally stupid on the other direction. But in the end, once all the energy is removed, we get right in the middle. So if it was effed up before, right, it's even if you pulled it back and you didn't get far back this way and it's no longer, it's in the middle. And no matter what, right, we'll use religion as a deal. Religion was part of that pendulum swing. They had an unimaginable amount of control and power. Right? So they took a footprint of society, or not a footprint, but they instilled in society some ideals. Well, the ideals of society aren't religious, but if you dig into how people behave, there's religion baked into everything that we have. And that's a consequences of allowing two opposing ends, where you had the Dark Ages where it was nothing but anti-religion, and you had now, a period of time where it was nothing but religion, and you're like, oh, there was actually some value that came in out of this, and we get to enjoy it for generations. But it's almost like the battle and the war has to take shape to take advantage of what ends up in the middle in those unintended consequences. And that's what my hope is that we, if evolution of the human species goes in a million different directions, and people toy with all kind of things from blue hair to, having tits installed on yourself, all of that. I mean, what it is in the end is cool, right?
Yeah.
And I will probably tolerate if someone's walking down the street and Ugg boots kind of went into actual puppy paws and people were walking around with hybrid different animal things. awesome. That's your expression. I don't care, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to see all kind of flavors of people. And, I've not been asked in my opinion about this for any practical purpose except for my opinion. My opinion carries absolutely no weight on what happens. I'm just a casual observer that is looking at things saying, enjoy the stupid trip, right? I hope it ends well.
And I wish a lot of people would sort of, this is going to sound like I'm giving myself praise, and I don't mean for it to sound that way.
Praise away, it's your birthday.
Yes. I wish people would watch these videos that like I'm watching. And the reason I'm watching them is to get other viewpoints. When you have someone that's sort of on one end and somebody who's on an opposing view, and you listen to their discussion, and you listen to someone that, whether it's transgender, whether it's a view on abortion or any hot button issue, try to watch as much as you can or talk to people as much as you can on both sides, see what they're saying, see what they're presenting, and then maybe form your opinion or whatever based off of that. I think a lot of people want to just go off of their initial reaction or how they feel or maybe not knowing much about it. And you can gather more information and still feel the same way, for sure. But it is interesting. I wish people would sort of just listen to others, get other viewpoints, and then say, all right, I've heard that. I've considered it. I've seen your point. And I still feel this way.
Yeah, you're allowed to reject it too. It's what if I wanted to sell you cheesecake and you didn't want to buy cheesecake? I could try real hard, and if you don't buy cheesecake, I'll try harder next time. And that you're constantly marketing ideas to people. You are overcoming biases and stereotypes and whatever. And truth is really difficult. It's just taking a person that's kind and caring, who's transgender, and going up to them in their face saying, "No, you're really a boy." Like that serves no purpose either, right?
Yeah.
If you're kind to me, I'm going to be kind to you. I'm not going to play in, games of fiction with you because that will compromise my integrity. But I'll be nice to you, and I'll love you just the same as anybody else. And the simplistic set of the ideas. I don't hate that person because I won't engage in their fiction, right?
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
And so let's go to the second part of this question, and then we'll wrap up here. What time is it? Oh, we did pretty good.
Yeah.
How do you explain what transgender is to your kids?
Oh, I'm going first?
It's up to you. You want me to go first? I can.
You go first.
Okay. So this actually happened. My kid went to a school, and I'm talking he was probably 6 years old, and there was one family at the school that had a daughter and a son, where the son transitioned to a female, and the daughter transitioned into a male. So he had two kids at their school that swapped genders. Okay.
The children did.
The children did.
Okay.
And so this kid started wearing a dress, and this girl, right, started cutting hair and dressing like a boy. So a 6-year-old comes up to me and says, "Why? What are they doing? What is this?"
Yeah.
And I believe in the honesty of children way more than I do adults. They are more observant and more perceptive. They won't jump to stereotypes. So the innocence of asking, "What is this?" was as genuine as you can possibly get.
Yeah.
Because the girl was actually so kind to my son. She was older. She was probably 16 when he was 6. Showed him his attention. Was kindest soul that you would come across. So to have somebody that he looked up to and had a good relationship with, all of a sudden change into a different thing, he was wondering, like, what's going on? Is there an illness involved here? Is there,
Yeah.
And I think what the kind of education that my kid was going through, he was very used to not being told the answer by an authority. Coming to your own conclusions by gathering evidence and finding out what things. So the only thing I can impart on him is that person is the same kind, generous, nice person that you ever know. We love those people and we treat them no different. If somebody makes a change, doesn't affect you whatsoever. You still love them in every way that you did before. And let them come to their own conclusion. Because I don't think as parents that we need to indoctrinate people into a belief one way or another. You let people come to conclusions by just telling them truth.
Yeah.
And you guide them into the thing that helps other people and becomes a better human being. And it's exactly what we did. He came to his own conclusions. Beyond that, maybe we had one or two more times of some oddities because those people weren't fitting in amongst other people. They were being mocked by other people and made fun of by other people because of how they were behaving. And I said, to go through what they're doing and knowing that there's criticism, they need our support. And so I told my kid that, if you feel confident and courageous enough, when you hear somebody that you care about and love being talked about in a derogatory way, stand up for them as if you would like to be stood up for in a circumstance. So we took the transgender term out of it, and we just had the principles of being good people to other people, regardless of the reason, and that's where he took his principles from. And I think that worked wonders because we've probably not had another transgender conversation again because he was able to just keep filling in those same principles over and over again, and he never had to deviate from them.
Yeah, because I think they're gonna sort of form their own opinion as they get older, and they're probably gonna take in the opinions of others about it and use that maybe to sort of shape their view. We had almost a similar instance when my kids were really little. They weren't transgender people, but we were sitting at a restaurant and there was a family next to us, and it was pretty clear there were lesbians and there were children. And you could tell they were a family, and there were two moms. And the kids kind of kept looking, and they would look at each other, and they would look again, and I could very much tell they were wondering, and they knew. And I asked them, and I said, "You see that family?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "They look like a loving family, huh?" And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "They love each other. They're having a good time." And they said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, we love each other, right?" "Yeah." And I said, "So they love each other, we love each other. We're both families." And they just said, "Oh, yeah."
They got over it super quick.
Yes.
They took out of the conversation the value in that conversation
Yeah.
completely.
I said a family is a family, and they love each other, and that's it. And in the case of if my child were to see someone who looked like they were transitioning, I would probably, if they had a lot of questions, I would probably just explain what it is, exactly what it is. This person was this and has decided to become this, period. And we don't need to know why they're doing it. We don't need to know any reasoning behind it. We don't need to know what's involved in it, because I think they're going to get that. When you're older, there are some people that might think it's a mental illness. I don't need to say whether it is or isn't. I don't know.
Well, the truth is we don't know. So
Right.
we wouldn't impart on something on there when we were unsure ourselves.
Right.
We're hoping that somebody in the future will say, is it a treatable mental illness? Is it just a segment of biological evolution? What if it's that? What if this is where we're
Yeah.
headed? And we're going to be, as what's that called when male-female relationship?
What?
I don't know. My brain just
Binary?
no,
No,
not
no. Heterosexual?
I don't know. It'll come to me and I'll
Okay.
yell it out. But anyway, what if that is the minority? And how would you want to be treated once you're in the minority of people who were in the majority? Would you want to be isolated and thought of less, and everybody just allows you to be mocked and throw tomatoes at you or whatever? Of course not. So while you're not in the minority, you can treat people how you wish to be treated in the minority, which then goes down. Treat people how you would like to be treated without those biases and those objections and all of that other activist bullshit that you would have pushed on you.
Mm-hmm. So here's something. I know we said we were going to wrap this up, but I feel like we
go
should
for
touch
it.
on
It's
it.
your birthday. You can take some liberties.
Do what I want.
Was that a Cartman? Yeah, it was
Sort of,
Cartman.
yeah.
Cartman.
What about this idea? I saw somebody online once say that this whole transgender topic is showing. How did he phrase it? He said gender ideology is, oh my God, I just had the word, a contagion. Mm-hmm. Which sounds bad, and a lot of people took offense to that word.
Oh, no, it totally is.
Yeah. Basically, he was saying the idea, this whole idea of changing your gender and sex and everything, he said he thinks is almost contagious in a way that what if kids see this and just to fit in with that crowd start to act that way when they don't really feel that way? I don't know. I mean, is that an issue? Is it not? Is that a thing?
No,
is
I mean,
not?
If you're being honest, okay, if you see things that other people are doing, like we are human beings and we're on the pursuit of purpose. We're trying to fill in the things that we don't know and get a lot of experiences. And if there's a suggestion that something is a thing, your brain is going to wrap around things that are not you and toy with it to see if it is you. And you're going to do certain things and you're like, nope, it's not for me. Now, if we believe that we will pursue all virtuous things, then we're only going to get curious about things that are going to be virtuous. If we can get curious about whether or not I could be an axe murderer, right, or I can be a robber, right, then I can flirt with it and see if it's for me. And some people will become robbers, and people are like, no, I don't like all the downside of being a robber. But your brain is 100% open. Like, how does the family that I was talking about? Right? If it is an isolated thing, if it's not part of the human species, so some people were born with 6 toes. We can't say that human beings have 6 toes, right? They're different, right? Some people are born differently. And so if there are a percentage of people who are legitimately transgender, then on the scientific side, the sample side of things, you're going to have maybe 1,000 people who see if maybe their feminine nature meant that they were really a girl in a boy's body, and then they're going to find out, well, no, I just really like pretty things, right?
Yeah.
And then some of them will be like,
or I was just into this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So they're going to fall out of that. I don't want to push people into it. So the family that had the tolerant mother who was an activist for transgenderism to begin with just happened to have 2 children who were born in the wrong body and reverse sexes, where the girl became the boy and the boy became the girl. Likelihood scientific, that is very, very unlikely to happen. So there is a factor of contagion in it, just like if I took your favorite celebrity and I put him in a jacket, right, and it was really pretty and you liked it, the contagion of wanting to do something that you see another person doing and flirting with the fact if that jacket is right for you is 100% congruent with what human nature delivers. And you might not want the jacket anymore in the future, but you're willing to be curious about something that's different than you.
Somebody in one of these videos I watched suggested the odds are so low, according to what they were saying, of one mother having 2 children who both are this way. They said to me being the person in this interview, was saying, is this maybe a mother pushing her own agenda on the kids? Look at me. I'm so woke or whatever. I'm so in tune to this idea. I'm so supportive. I'm such an ally. I even have both of my kids are this way. And it's really her pushing her agenda on them. Maybe. I don't know. So how do you feel about gender-affirming care for minors?
This is one of those things. I don't add any value to it. I honestly think that there's probably, like, if we're talking about the person with 6 toes, right? And there's somebody who needs attention, and to be kind to them, you give them that thing. And if you can defend against all of the fakers, the people who don't really belong there and they just want it and they're going to brutalize their body, whatever, I think it's just such a risk to do something so drastic to the human body when they might be wrong. The commitment to that has to be really certain.
Yes, I agree. And this was the most recent video I just watched yesterday. They were talking about this gender affirming for minors. And it was divided. Some people said, hey, I knew from 12, from 16, from any age who I was. If I could have had surgery then, I would have. I did it as an adult and I've got no regrets. And that's fine. But you also do have those that say they want to transition and regret it. And so knowing what we know about the brains of children and the development, God, is that risky to do anything permanent. And they brought up a point that I did not realize. A lot of these people when they were children, because they couldn't have surgery because they were children, would start to bind themselves, and they damaged their spines and their rib cages from binding themselves on a regular basis because they were born female and wanted to be a male, and they would wear these tight bindings. And they said, my back is forever screwed up. My rib cage is forever damaged because I did this when I could have just had surgery and been fine. But you can't take the surgery back. And so part of me wants to say, well, then don't bind yourself. Just don't.
And that's why if healthcare was able to deal with these things as they are, right, the factual side without having a bias, then they can treat people and find those damaging type of options. But medical doesn't want to touch this because they get decimated because of the activists. They're ruining that. So you do have suicides that happen and physical damage. And, so if you were explaining to me, again, my alien friends are the best way to make decisions, right? Explaining to them that you have two people and they think they're the wrong gender, right? They're willing at 15 to start making changes in their body to reflect how they feel inside. Okay, so the compassionate people were going to say, well, yeah, give into it and make them feel comfortable in their own body, right? That would be ignoring the other side of things. Like, okay, is a human being's brain developing? Is it done developing by the time you're 16? Will it change its mind a bunch of times in a lot of different areas? And if you do a permanent thing, is it going to be regretted later? And these things aren't like a binary choice now that I see what I did there. A binary choice where it's either going to be a good decision or a bad decision. If you enter into the complicated world of doing that, then you have to have a professional that understands science that helps you navigate it so that if you make decisions that have risk, you know about them, right? Because you're not doing those things, that you're going to have emotional strains, that you have a professional to help you deal with that. And that would be the true scientific approach on it.
And that can be risky too. One of the things they brought up is the idea of our medical personnel pushing gender affirming care because they profit from it.
Exactly.
And so you got to be real careful on, do you have a medical professional that is truly looking into you and your situation and what is good for you?
Every angle of this is a risky proposition.
Yeah.
Okay. There's an easy way, right? And which was before, which is we deal with the one or two of them that you would ever meet in a lifetime and deal with them that way. Or do what we're doing now is create this a group that we're trying to jam through things that are obviously breaking everything around them. So do you go back to the fallout from how things were before so it's easier and can be more contained? Or do you do the natural thing that's obviously happening and figure out how to be smart enough to be able to handle this new complicated thing? So that's why I said me walking into a YWCA, the easy thing is I just go to the YMCA and I don't have to consider all this stuff and all of, I get to hold all of the things I didn't like about being in there with men and women. Or I go after the thing, know that all the complications are mine, and I have to make proper accommodations so I don't affect myself negatively and I don't affect the other people negatively. If you play the complicated game, for sure you're going to deal with the complicated set of repercussions. And so, like, me personally, like I consider this: what would happen if all of these truths, what if one of these characters came into my life and I'd have to deal with them every day? So I'd have to wrestle with what I want to do to be awesome to that person without conflicting with my principles about how I want to feel and deal with it. It's almost like I need one of these things in my life so I could properly get optics on it and see what that would really be like. So you don't know how you would feel about people, on a social safety net that has cancer or whatever until you have one of those things and you're like, what I felt about taxpayer money going to something is different now that I have one of those things at home, and the conflict and the barrier between those things, I may be a completely different person once I'm in person dealing with this on a daily basis.
Yeah, for sure. So takeaway is, you don't know what someone's going through. You don't know if you're not in it. Be open-minded to everything, I guess.
Now, does our opinions, do you think it helps or do you think it hurts? Like, I don't share my opinion about this because I know that I have no value to add to anybody. Nobody is going to be made better by me sharing my opinion about it. Only what I can do with me and my family.
I think it's helpful if people can listen openly. One of the reasons I love to watch these videos is to get information from people living it and people that have had experience in it. And let me see viewpoints that are not my own, or, listen to others. I think we are so afraid to discuss these issues. I have been too. It wasn't until Unpopular Opinions that I would ever voice an opinion because I'm so afraid of upsetting someone. But I feel like we as adults need to hear things that might be upsetting and still talk about it, because the lack of talking about it leads to a lack of information, which leads to the fighting. And maybe we could all get on more, maybe not the same page, but maybe a little closer if we knew how to discuss things without getting angry and ending the discussion, but continuing to push, continuing to research, continuing to move the discussion along, and then maybe we get somewhere.
Well, I feel that you and I are not entrenched in this, which means that if we got more details, we got more science, we got more perspectives from people in our circles, that we would be free to be able to change our mind and look at today and said, we were wrong, but here's why we were wrong. Mm-hmm. I think there's a portion of these people who are entrenched, and no matter what, they're never going to say, oh, I had that completely wrong. I think they're immovable. So I think the first step is getting not only to be able to discuss these things without getting mad, mm-hmm. but also more willing to say, I was wrong and I'm sorry.
Yeah,
and
for
I'm
sure.
more educated than I was at one time.
Yeah, and I think swallowing pride is so big. Very few people can do that, I think. Very few. And we had talked about this before, it was after the most recent election. I was seeing a lot of people, not a lot. It was one particular on Facebook posting a lot about this, saying Trump and this administration is going to take away LGBTQ rights and things of that nature. I have friends that are part of the LGBTQ community. I've always considered myself to be a bit of an ally. I also don't believe that's happening. I also look at things from a political standpoint and don't think my friends should be as scared as they seem. So what I would do is I commented and said, would you mind elaborating a bit more? Could you tell me why you feel this way? Could you maybe send me some sources that I could look at that maybe I haven't seen yet to better understand your point? And that question was met with such anger and pushback. And how could you not, I don't need to explain myself. You should just know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, sorry, you can't demand that of people. You can't demand that. I've done enough research to feel one way. I'm asking you why you feel your way. I'm willing to consider your way and look into it. And if that's met with, you shouldn't even ask me about that, then guess where I'm going back to?
K-Dog.
How's it going?
Good. You ready?
I was born